our country. We talked about that before, right? Didn't we talk about an act that saved tariffs because our business, Great Britain was going to run us out of business? Didn't we talk about that? That tariff act that put a high tariff on goods coming in from Great Britain so our factories and our farmers could make money? Well, they still needed things. People in the South still needed things from Great Britain to harvest their crops and that type of thing, and they were getting a well, why were they getting a high tax charged on it? Why were they paying it? What did Britain do when the high tax came up? Passed it on to the consumer, right? Well, South Carolina saw this as very unfair. They thought the New England states got off scot-free and they were having to suffer, because if you think about the chain, who do the New England states? They're not growing anything. They're not southern planters, right? Where are they getting their goods? From the South. Well, once they get their goods from the South, they're not getting charged the big tariff. So South Carolina was very upset about that tariff. Now, the one that was leading the charge that was upset the most, ironically, was Andrew Jackson's vice president, John C. Calhoun. Remember, he was from South Carolina. And he was leading the charge and threatening all kinds of things if this tariff didn't get reduced. What kind of things was he threatening? Anybody know? What would be the normal thing you'd threaten if you thought the tax was too high? I'm not going to pay it. Okay? So the first threat that Calhoun and government officials in South Carolina threw back is that if you continue to have this high tariff, we simply won't pay it. We'll refuse to pay it. They even went as far to say what would they do if they didn't cut off the tariff. What drastic action did they claim to take? Think of the Civil War. They were going to secede from the Union. Way back here in the 1835s. They were going to secede from the Union. So put this in your mind. South Carolina is upset because of the high tariff that we're charging Great Britain to bring goods in, because they're really taking the cost. They want something done. All they want is that tariff to be lowered. Okay? And they say, and they being John C. Calhoun mainly, and government officials in South Carolina, if you don't get that tax reduced, we're first of all not going to pay it, and we might even secede from the Union. Now, even though, this is where I kind of get back to where maybe President Trump's type of reaction. Even though President Jackson really knew in his heart that the tariff was too high, he knew that. He hated John C. Calhoun so much that he wasn't going to let him win. He loved a good fight, President Jackson. And you know what Jackson did when the rubber hit the road and these threats came back from South Carolina? He threatened to send in federal troops to arrest all of the government officials in South Carolina and threatened to hang John C. Calhoun when he got there. Can you believe that? So, word gets back to Jackson that South Carolina is not very happy about this high tariff. Word gets back to Jackson, his own vice president, who he does not like, is threatening not only not to pay this tax, but to secede from the Union. Well, Jackson's not going to have the country go to split up during his watch. And he responds by threatening to send federal troops in to arrest all of these South Carolina government officials and hang John C. Calhoun from the nearest tree. I think he would have done it. Well, fortunately for this country, cooler heads prevailed. South Carolina backed off, and Congress took the bull by the horn. And what did Congress do to settle this conflict? Lowered the tariff. So everybody kind of saved face at a point. But it was kind of controversial because South Carolina was threatening to secede from the Union over this. And Jackson could have solved it a lot easier by using some probably good common sense, but that's the way he was. He hated Calhoun. And he wasn't letting Calhoun win, so he was good. Now, I think, and I'm not being critical, I'm just saying, I could see President Trump doing something like that. You kind of look at what he's doing with the wall here, not to that drastic point, but if I don't get my wall, I'm going to shut down the government. It's kind of radical for nowadays, to be honest with you. And that's another comparison of these two, good, bad, or otherwise. Jackson and Trump have some very similar personalities and traits. They really do. Well, anyway, that ended the South Carolina nullification crisis. What does this do, though? What does Jackson say to the country when he takes the action he does? It was one of his 3 firm convictions. What does he say to the country? What's he say when he makes an outrageous threat that he's going to hang the Vice President of the United States? What's he telling the people? You better believe in what? The power of the presidency. I am the most powerful man, and I'll do whatever I have to do to get my way. Who does that remind you of a little bit? Seriously. Donald Trump a little bit. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm saying they have the same type of similarities. I believe Donald Trump believes in the power of the presidency. He signed more executive orders in a short period of time than most. You know what I mean? So I believe he believes in the power of the presidency. Okay, that's going to take us to a really interesting subtopic, our last one of the day. President Jackson opposes the Second Bank of the United States. President Jackson opposes the Second Bank of the United States. Now, as you're writing down that subtopic, let me make a point here that the Bank of the United States is kind of like a politician. Every 4 years, Congress has to pass a bill to re-up the bank's charter so they can operate. And who made the first national bank? Who's created that? Alexander Hamilton, very good. And ever since that creation, they have upped the bank every 4 years. Okay? Well, Jackson doesn't like the Second Bank of the United States. It's one of the most bitter fights that he has during his presidency is against the bank. He doesn't like the bank. And I'm going to give you 7 reasons why he attacked the Bank of the United States. I'm going to give you 7 reasons why he attacked the Bank of the United States. Anybody want to guess one reason why he attacked the Bank of the United States? One reason why I attacked Twitter? Why I attack Twitter? Why don't I like Twitter? Well, but why might, that's a good guess. No, that's not, you're not for, why, what might be a really good reason I'm not going to get on Twitter? Well, I am stubborn, but why am I stubborn? Why am I not going to get on, I'm not getting on Twitter. Well, why not, Mr. Nerve? Well, I don't like it. Why else? No, he's not that complex of a man. Why don't I like Snapchat? What? No, not so much that. Why don't I like Snapchat? Why don't I like Google? Why don't we have Google Chromebooks in here? And why don't I use Chromebooks and put you in groups? I'm old-fashioned. Old-fashioned's good guess, but why may I not like something new? Because I don't. What? A lot of people don't like change because they don't want it. Why don't I like it though? And I don't necessarily. Come on now. You're not giving me, gee whiz, you're giving me a lot more credit than I have coming. Why do people, I hate that. Why do people sometimes say I hate that? Just the first reason. Why are you uncomfortable? And why is it new? And it's because it's new, you don't, what? Understand it. He didn't like the Bank of the United States because he didn't understand the banking system. I don't like Twitter. You know I don't like Twitter, I don't use it? Because I don't understand this. I understand Facebook, kind of. But I don't do Twitter because I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't do Snapchat or ChapSnap or whatever it is because I don't get it. I don't get it. So I don't like it. So the first reason why he attacked the Second Bank of the United States is because he didn't understand the banking system. Didn't understand banks. Now I kind of alluded to the other one. The second reason why he went after the Second Bank of the United States is he disliked banks and distrusted banks. So the second reason that he went after the Bank of the United States is he didn't like banks and he didn't trust banks. Those are the 2 most common reasons, kiddos, why somebody doesn't like something that can't give you a reason why they don't. Because they don't want to admit that they don't understand him. They might admit to you they don't like him, they don't trust him, but most people, you don't have this because they don't understand him. So those are the simplest ones. Why else might he not like the Bank of the United States as it was set up originally? And I got the other, Austin Sherman got this. I was pretty impressed this morning. See, not many kids get this. Why else, because of the way it was set up in the old days, would Jackson especially not like it? That, not Republicans, Federalists that were rich. Very good, very good. Jackson saw the United States Bank as a monopoly that the rich and powerful used to their own advantage. Very good. So the third reason he attacked the Second Bank of the United States was because he saw the Bank of the United States as a monopoly that the rich and powerful used to their advantage. It had no benefit to the common person. Okay? He saw the Bank of the United States as a monopoly that the rich and powerful used to their advantage. Now, the fourth reason kind of ties in with the third reason. If the United States Bank is a monopoly that favors the rich and powerful, who would be the major stockholders in the bank? The rich and powerful. So the fourth reason he attacked it is he didn't like the fact that the majority of the stockholders in the Bank of the United States were rich, wealthy people that lived on the eastern seaboard. He didn't like those kind of people, and they were the major stockholders. Most of the stock in the Bank of the United States were owned by wealthy people from the eastern seaboard. That was the fourth reason why he went after the bank. He hated wealthy people, as you're well aware of. He certainly hated the fact that they were the major stockholders. The fifth reason why he attacked it is only a handful of people that lived west of the Appalachians were stockholders in the bank. Only a handful of commoners that lived west of the Appalachian Mountains were stockholders in the bank. Only a handful of common people living west of the Appalachian Mountains owned stock in the bank. Next, number 6. Jackson accused the Bank of the United States of lending money to Congress. Jackson accused, and he was probably right, he accused the Second Bank of the United States of lending money to Congress. He accused him of it, it was probably true. So Riley, my dear, why is that a problem? Why is Jackson upset that the Bank of the United States, lent money to members of Congress? Why would that make you mad? Well, let me give you a little hint here. Riley, you're serving in the House of Representatives from Massachusetts. I need a loan. Well, the normal interest rate would be 7.5% for the normal person, but if you're a congresswoman from Massachusetts, how about if I lend you the money at 2%? Why would I do that? Oh, is he?
So you have more people in the house supporting you?
Well, kind of. If I lend you that money at 2%, save you 5.5%, you might just pass laws that would help my bank. Or I might come to you and say, you know that bill you got on there that's going to help my bank? Remember that money I lent you at 2% instead of 7.5%? How about if you vote for that? That's going to help you. So here's the thing. President Jackson accused the Bank of the United States of lending money to Congress in exchange for political favors. In exchange for political favors. He said, you're lending money to Congress, they are passing laws that benefit your bank, that's not fair. Probably was true. Does that make sense? There's always a catch, kids. If somebody's going to do something for you, for the most part, financially especially, if they're going to lend you money for less, there's going to be a catch of some kind. Okay? Now, the seventh was just typical Jackson, and I think would be a little bit typical President Trump. The seventh reason why Jackson attacked the second Bank of the United States, in his opinion, the Bank of the United States was unconstitutional. In his opinion, the mere existence of the Second National Bank was unconstitutional. Is that probably true? I'm guessing maybe not, but he believed it was. And he wasn't afraid to go on his convictions. So, again, the 7 reasons why Jackson attacked the Second National Bank. Number 1, he disliked and distrusted banks. Number 2, he did not understand the banking system. Number 3, he saw the Bank of the United States as a monopoly that the rich and powerful used to their advantage. Number 4, a majority of the stockholders in the Bank of the United States were wealthy people from the eastern seaboard. Number 5, only a handful of people living west of the Appalachians owned stock in the bank. Number 6, Jackson accused the Bank of the United States of lending money to Congress in exchange for political favors. And number 7, he simply believed that the mere existence of the Bank of the United States was unconstitutional. Well, he gets himself into a little bit of a controversy, and Congress, led by Henry Clay, is going to kind of try to pull a fast one on Jackson here, okay? Because they know he doesn't like the bank, and he's going to go after the bank. So what does Henry Clay do with his influence in Congress? What does he taught Congress to do that would be the opposite of what Jackson might want done? Go ahead, I think you were going to say it. Yeah, and that's great. In the summer of 1832, Henry Clay taught Congress into renewing the bank's charter 3.5 years earlier than it needed to. So they went ahead and put a bill through Congress that they were going to re-up the Second Bank of the United States for another 4 years, 3.5 years early. And if that passes, they're good for 7.5 years, making Jackson kind of untouchable. You see what I'm saying? In their mind. So think about that. In the summer of 1832, Congress, who were led by Henry Clay. Now, by the way, how well did Henry Clay get along with Andrew Jackson? He called him the Judas of the West. He thought he was part of a corrupt bargain. Remember that deal? And so they hated each other. And so Clay did this to irritate Jackson because he knew Jackson didn't like the bank. What better way to make it work for us if we renew the charter 3.5 years in advance? Well, when a bill goes through Congress, whose desk does it come across to have approved or not approved? The president's. And what's the president do if he doesn't like a bill? Vetoes it. Clay doesn't believe he'll veto the bill. He's sticking it in his face. He and Nicholas Biddle, who's the president of the Second Bank of the United States, are both challenging Jackson. You'll never veto this because what's coming up? This is the summer of 32. What's coming up in November 32?
Re-election.
A re-election. And they believe that if he vetoes this bill 4 months before the election, it'll cost him the election, and Jackson's smart enough to figure that out. So there's no way that Biddle and Clay think that he will veto this bill, because it will probably hurt him in the election realistically. So Henry Clay is trying to pull a fast one on President Jackson. He gets together in cahoots with the president of the Second Bank of the United States, Nicholas Biddle, and they basically dare Jackson to veto this bill, knowing he never will, because they believe he will not be re-elected if he does. Well, let's get back to Jackson and his personality. Did he like John C. Calhoun? Does he like Henry Clay? Does he like Nicholas Biddle? Does he like a good fight? So what does he do? Vetoes the bill on July 4th, 1832. He vetoes it. Just 4 months before election time. He vetoes it. So, Monday when we talk about the election of 1832, what's going to be the major campaign focus of that election? The Second Bank of the United States. Okay? So we'll see if it hurts him. But I'll tell you what, he would accept a challenge. It probably would hurt him to veto that bill. He was not allowing any of his enemies to get the best of him. That's just how it was. We'll see what happens if it makes a difference.